All right, welcome to Bible study. Welcome everybody online. We are outside tonight. It's our last in-person dinner and Bible study tonight. We do online in the summertime and then start back with school. And we are going to be jumping around just a little bit, but I thought we would do a little bit of Thanksgiving at the beginning and then work our way into a real deep discussion like you'd find in seminary that some of you guys have said to me in the past, hey, I have an issue with trying to figure this out. And so one of the things that I thought we could do Thanksgiving-wise is I think we lose sight of, and some of you all, this is the discussion we're going to have in a minute, is the difference, is God involved here on earth? Is He involved here? Is He doing things here on earth? And from my point of view, God is not only taking care of us and watching out for every one of our needs. Every single person that attends our prayer breakfast on Tuesdays will tell you God is at work in our church, God is at work in our community, God is at work in our nation and world. But some people would question that, that it's just that we just kind of, God started it, set it all in motion, and that He kind of pulled back. That word is transcendent and is sitting out there like watching an ant farm, like watching your beehive, that He's not participating, that He's just watching. And so, but think of this for just a second, because some of us, we have trouble fathoming that God is helping us and working for our good and all that kind of stuff. But think about all the things that God is doing. Okay, so think about plants, everything that's growing, and the photosynthesis process that goes on. All of the different processes that God does, condensation, evaporation, the water cycle, right? All of those things that work for our good. If you think about how you guys are from a more rural community, but if I said to you, how do you get rich soil? Some of y'all would be like, well, you just got to live in a certain place to have rich soil. It's better in certain places. And that's true because of flooding a lot of times. If the Mississippi River floods on both sides, that ground on both sides is very fertile because of all of those nutrients from the water that gets up there when it floods. And this is the point I'm making, is that, all that rich soil is usually determined by dead stuff. It's determined by the skin that falls off of us and the animals and stuff that die. Some of y'all are eating, and all that kind of stuff. But it's also determined by bugs and worms and, right, all of the stuff. Think of how a mulch pile works, right? And mulch piles are great in terms of you're doing growing. But my grandfather had these amazing gardens that were, he would cover them in horse manure at different times and put out fertilizer and all kinds of these different things to give it this rich, fertile soil. But God does that. Everything that dies off serves as nutrients in the soil to help it be fertile to grow more stuff. And we don't think of that way, that God set it up as this amazing system because, you know how your water gets clean? Because lots of people stop on Carter's Creek with their bottles and they get the water off of the, it's coming out the side of that little mountain right there, the spring water that comes out. It's being filtered by the ground. The ground is filtering out all the stuff, and that's how you get springs that have that crystal clear water, and it's how God set it up. So, but think of other things like all of the insects that God has and all the stuff that goes on, all the different things that go on in an insect colony. Think about everything that goes on underground that you never see. Because kids get out and they dig and they're like, ooh, look at this, ooh, look at this, ooh, look at this. And we don't ever think about all the stuff that's going on unless we're out weed eating. James just got finished mowing and weed eating. And I'm telling you, I did it for so many years. As you just run that weed eater across the top of a yellow jacket's nest, you don't know it's there. And it goes up like a cloud. I mean, they come up out of the ground and you better start running as fast as you can. But you don't even know they're there. And there's like 10,000 of them right there, that are just underneath the ground. And we just don't know about the ants, and we don't know about all of the different things that are going on. He takes care of all the wild animals. We sit here and we go, there's not that many wild animals. Oh yeah, there is. There's all kinds of wild animals. And if we go to other parts of the world, there's serious wild animals, right? My uncle and his girlfriend, they're going to Morocco. And they've already warned them about the cobras and the stuff that are over there in the desert, all the scorpions and the different things that are out there. Just wild animals that are out there that, I love to go to the zoo. You go to the National Zoo, you walk around and look at all these exotic animals. but they're out in the wild in certain places, right? They're not just for our enjoyment in a zoo. They're out there living, replicating, all of that kind of stuff, and being fed and just finding their own food, all that. Underwater, worst thing you can do is go to the beach, and y'all are going to be like longing. It's that time of year where everybody's ready to go somewhere for a vacation. But at the beach, I was with a youth group once, and one of the kids went back to the room, got his mask and snorkel. And we're at we're at Panama City, I think, and it wasn't a clear day, Jimmy. You know what I mean? The water was kind of murky. It had been storming and stuff like that. And he goes, I want to be able to look under the water and all that kind of stuff. And he stuck his face in that water, and he came up and started running. And I'm like, where are you going? And he goes, you don't want to see. You don't want to see. Because there's stuff around you that you don't know is down there. Because it's nice to go to Panama City, and I like to see my toes in 5 feet of water, right? I can look down there and see my feet. But there's a whole, under the sea, the old Disney movie, with Ariel and everything. But there's stuff that's going on underwater. There's stuff going on. It's one of the worst things you can do is to actually have a microscope and be able to look at like your hands and textbooks and your phone and your wallet and all those things at the stuff, the on the molecular level, right? To see all of the junk that's you can't see with your eyes, but you'd be able to see it on a molecular level. All the stuff that's going on in space, because we sit here and we go, well, yeah, God set that in motion, and it's, but actually, like, Jupiter has the gravity on Jupiter. It's set up in such a way that the gravity on Jupiter draws all of the things that would destroy our planet into its orbit and just crushes it, right? So it's like a filter vacuum cleaner for our solar system. And it's set up that way to protect us from all the stuff. Because we would say, oh yeah, there was this event that killed all the dinosaurs or whatever. Yes, there are things that hit the earth, but not like what you're imagining because of the way that it's set up. How about inside your body? Nobody here is sitting here going, come on, heart, pump, pump, pump. Lungs, convert to oxygen now. Convert, right? All of these processes are going on inside of our body, and there are things, living things in there that are taking care of us, watching out, raising, some of y'all are sitting here going, yeah, raising my insulin, not raising my insulin, right? All, those kind of systems. But just think about all that's going on in your body and all that has to happen. Think about how long a doctor has to go to school to learn that. How much stuff is going on in your body, right? A doctor goes to school for that long day. They don't even know everything when they get done with that. But those are just some of the things I thought I would throw out to you because, there's a lot that God is doing besides, we'll say things like, I prayed yesterday and God didn't do anything. You know what I mean? We get upset that God didn't give us the lottery numbers or whatever it is, the boyfriend, girlfriend that we wanted, or I didn't get into this school, or I didn't get the house I wanted to buy. Caleb and his wife, my middle son, put an offer on a house, and she's like, I really like it. She goes, let's buy it. And he's like, okay. And he goes, what do you want to offer? She goes, give them what they want. I want this house. So they gave a full price offer for this house in Knoxville and got outbid. They just did the auction thing to them. They called the other people and said, hey, they gave us a full price offer. What will you give? And they went up $5,000 or whatever. And Caleb's like, I'm not paying you more than you were asking. So, but you get the point is that you just get disappointed when God doesn't give you what you think is the answer or whatever. So, but God is at work and is so much, Paul says heaven is beyond what we can imagine. And so God is beyond what we can imagine. He is so big and so in terms of creating everything and managing everything. And I love the old Jim Carrey movie where he is, Bruce Almighty, and he, God says, "Oh, you think you could do better? Here you go." And he's listening to people's prayers, and it's like, and he just goes, "I'll just tell them all yes," and hits the button for everybody gets yes. And there's like 142 lottery winners in Buffalo the next day, and all that stuff is just that God is so beyond what we can imagine. We're like, how could he do this? How could he be everywhere all the time? How can he hear all the things all the time? He's that much bigger in terms of the way that it's just beyond what our brains can comprehend. All right, so let's deal with this for just a second. I want you to be able to see something with me. So in Judges 6, And we've been talking in Judges. That's what I've been preaching on on Sundays. But I wanted to just point out this little part here is that it says, verse 7, so chapter 6, verse 7, when the Israelites cried out to the Lord because of Midian, that was who was oppressing them, as the group of people. It says, he sent them a prophet who said, this is what the Lord, the God of Israel says, I brought you up out of Egypt, out of the land of slavery. I rescued you from the hand of the Egyptians, and I delivered you from the hand of all of your oppressors. I drove them out before you and gave you their land. I said to you, I'm the Lord your God. Do not worship the gods of the Amorites in whose land you live, but you've not listened to me. Then it says, the angel, this is verse 11, the angel of the Lord came and sat down under the oak in Ophrah that belonged to Joash the Abiezrite, where his son Gideon was threshing wheat in a winepress to keep it from the Midianites. When the angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon, he said, the Lord is with you, mighty warrior. Pardon me, Lord, Gideon replied. But if the Lord is with us, why has all this happened to us? He's talking about why has the bad stuff happened? Why are all his wonders that our ancestors told us about when they said, did not the Lord bring us up out of Egypt? But now the Lord has abandoned us and given us into the hand of Midian. And so there's a lot of folks, a lot of us, if we're going to have this discussion about imminence and transcendence, imminence meaning, okay, so if you go at Christmas time and what's the name that Jesus is given at Christmas time for the most part? What name do you hear? Emmanuel. Emmanuel, and what does that name mean? God with us. Okay, so Jesus being born, that is an actual prophecy, and that's written about 725 BC, between 725 and 700 BC. So 700 years before Christ. How long's our country been around? You know, we're 200 and something at this point, right? This is 700 years before, and it's God with us is what Emmanuel means. And so that's that idea of imminence, that God is here with us. And in the New Testament, of course, you have Paul talking about when we become a Christian, God gives us His Holy Spirit, and the Holy Spirit lives in us and is a deposit guaranteeing that we're going to heaven, right? It's a deposit and guarantee of what is to come. So here we have Gideon, and Gideon's going, I hadn't seen much of God. He's abandoned us. You know what I'm saying? Ouch. She either got pinched or got stung by something. I don't know which one it is. Ouch. Ouch. So Jimmy's fighting the sun, hitting him in the face. Yeah. So for us, I want you guys to try to sit there and go, okay, so is God here among us? And some would say He was, but He left, right? You would have Jesus ascended into heaven, so God's not here with us anymore. No, the Bible's clear to say His Holy Spirit is here among us, and He does all these wonderful, great, and mighty things. And in all actuality, takes care of so much stuff, right? I mean, takes care of things that it's just beyond me to sit there and look at all that God has done in my life. And some of it is what I would call it's spread out, you know, because if James goes, Amber and I desperately need $582 by tomorrow. And I go, well, let's pray. And they take my hand and we pray for $582. And he gets a check tomorrow in the mail, and it's $582. James is like, that's God, right? That's God. But if the next day he gets a check for $52.37, 3 days later he gets one for $187.20, and then he gets one for... We sometimes don't connect those dots to be able to see that God gave us $582. It just wasn't the amount that right on time that we were wanting, right? So does that mean God's not here? No, that means God took care of the need and provided. And like I said, I think it's 3 weeks ago in my sermon, I said 90% of the stuff we worry about never happens, right? And so God takes care of all these things. It's kind of like He is working about a mile ahead when I'm on the interstate, making sure to keep me out of this or keep me out of that, right? I got on the interstate in Jacksonville one time. I was riding in the car and I'm listening to the radio, and he was playing one of my favorite songs, and I'm just jamming out, and then that song ended, and then the guy comes on, he goes, that was Journey playing, you know, whatever. And he goes, be careful on the I-5 over there, because it's there's an object in the road. And about that time, as soon as he said that, I went, and I went over this, and I had a flat tire. I hit whatever object that he was saying. And I pulled over, and I'm like, Lord, come on, give me more notice than 1 second before the guy tells me to watch out for the object in the road. But for the most part, I think God has pretty much done this number, and I know He has. You know how I know that? How many of you all? This is not a sexist statement because it's boys and girls. When you were younger, walked this deep in creeks out behind your house, this deep in the water, right? In creeks, just turning over rocks. You're out there doing, just crazy things. And for me, I've walked through fields. I'm not kidding. I bet you I've walked 10,000 miles through fields of stuff that was this tall. Walking out through somebody's property, cutting across the back of somebody's farm, and you're walking, and you're just, hey, what are you doing? And you're just walking, and you probably walked by 50,000 snakes or whatever it is, sinkholes that opened up beside you that you never knew about. And that's the part that I love about God is, how many spiders has God protected me from in my lifetime? That were in my bed. Y'all aren't going to be able to sleep tonight, right? That were crawling in my bed, and God didn't have it bite me, right? He kept protecting me. And I never knew. Never even had a clue, right? My mom was driving down the interstate with my dad, and he never lets her drive. And he's over there, he's got his head down or whatever, and she's driving, and this construction truck swerves over behind an 18-wheeler, and then swerves back over, and he's going real fast. And his ladder comes undone on the top of his truck and goes up into the air. The ladder just shoots up in the air, and it comes down in Mom's lane right in front of her, set up. It just went chink, and it just set up like that. And she went, Arr! And my dad's like, what are you doing, crazy woman? Let's go step. And she goes, there was a ladder sitting up in the road. Sure there was. What kind of crazy driving is this? I let you drive for 5 minutes, and you're doing this, right? But God protected her. She's like, when has that ever happened to anybody that a ladder comes and just sits up in the middle of the road? And so for us, there's just God doing things behind the scenes. And I mean, it's easy for me to go, okay, the Garth Brooks thing about God, the best thing is unanswered prayers, I thank God, for unanswered prayers. That is also one of the ways that God works. Now, let's talk about, go back to immanence and transcendence for just a second. Do you guys know that right now, and you guys see if you have an explanation for this other than the one I'm going to give you. In the Muslim world, Middle East, Sam will verify this. I know he's read stuff on this before. I guarantee you Doug has read stuff on this as well. But in the Middle East right now, there are all of these folks that are Muslims and Hindus who are like, had a dream about Jesus last night. Jesus spoke to me and Jesus said this. Jesus told me to do this in a dream last night. And people are looking at them and they don't want to share that because they're not allowed to talk. You're not supposed to convert to Christianity. You're not supposed to talk about Christianity. You're not supposed to read about Christianity. You're not supposed to do any of that. And they kill you if you become a Christian. That's straightforward. Even Sundar Singh, who lived, almost 100 years ago at this point, when he was in India, became a Christian, and his family tried to poison him immediately because he was an infidel at that point. So all of these Muslims and Hindus in the Middle East are having these dreams about Jesus. Why do you think that is? Because how many of your friends have come up to you, grabbed you by the arm and said, Jesus spoke to me in a dream last night, told me to do this? I'm a minister. I've been a minister 58 years, and I don't know, I probably can name one time that somebody said that to me. Why is it happening so much in the Middle East right now? What did it say? Yeah.
And what's happening in the Middle East, in my opinion, is God is ever more visible there because He has to, and they trust for an end to be.
Okay.
Those who are there praying.
Okay. So if you read,
What was that? Dinner was really good.
So in the Old Testament, because we read the Old Testament and we long for those we read Old Testament and New Testament, we long for those things. And so, and what I mean by that is we long for Jesus to appear to us, or an angel of the Lord. You just heard that, right? An angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon and said this. We long for God to do that in our lives. We want those kinds of things to happen. And one of the ideas that I have in explaining some of that is that you have, it was 1400 when Moses writes out the first 5 books. Okay, so 1400 BC. That's when he writes the first 5 books. And then each book gets written. Okay, so let's go, because you have Joshua, Judges, Ruth, and used to, when I came through seminary, they said that Samuel wrote those books. Now they're kind of debating who wrote those books. They're thinking it's an unknown author at this point, that maybe Joshua wrote his book. They're not sure who wrote Judges, not sure who wrote Ruth, and they're arguing about that. But in my lifetime, it's always been Samuel that wrote that. And those are about 1400. Joshua's about 1400. Then you get down to like Samuel and 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Chronicles. And 1st and 2nd Samuel is like at 1000. That's when David was alive and Solomon. And the reason I'm saying that, and I'm giving you some of those numbers, is because that's when they had the Bible. That's when they had the written word of God, is after that. But before that, they didn't have it. They didn't have the written word of God. And a reason I'm saying that to you is that if you're talking about Muslims and Hindus in the Middle East, how much access to the Bible do they have? 0. You get caught with a Bible and they're going to kill you. Like I said, you become a Christian, they kill you unless you convert back to being a Muslim. And so God says they don't have access to reading my word, and so I have to speak to them in a different way. And the different way is I'm appearing to them in dreams. Or, like I said, I read the book Finding God, Finding Each Other, which is a psychiatrist in, I think it was Maryland, the D.C. area, and his wife became a Christian. They were both psychiatrists, and they were both atheists, and she got asked to a church service, gave her life to Christ, and he was so mad that she had been fooled and got taken into Christianity and all that. And so she's like, got more involved, and he just got meaner and madder and madder. And so she said, I'm going on a women's retreat this weekend with the church, and you'll be home by yourself, do the bachelor thing and that kind of stuff. And so she left, got in the car, and went to the women's retreat, and he sat down, and a Bible was laying on the coffee table right there in the living room. And he said, he's just sitting there fuming, and he said, God, I don't believe in you. I don't think you're real. But if you are, you're going to need to prove it to me. You're going to need to show me. Come do something so that I know without a doubt that you're real. Jesus appeared on the patio at his sliding glass door. Opened the sliding glass door, walked in. Jesus appeared on the patio, walked in. Now this is a guy. Now for you all, some of you guys would go, if I was telling that, some of you guys would go, oh well, they're a little bit on the spectrum. I think they imagined that. I don't think they really knew what was going on, or they're a drinker, or they use drugs, or whatever. I'm not sure that was really Jesus as much as just a figment of their imagination. This guy's a psychiatrist, does this for a living, and he's mad, fuming, and he says, prove it. And Jesus appears and speaks to him directly, and he's just like, boom, just like in the Bible, just like New Testament, falls on his face. Sorry, I am so sorry, Lord, forgive me. I had no clue that this was actually real. I thought this was comic book stuff. You know what I'm saying? I've been telling people for years that it was comic book stuff, and they need to take medicine if they were talking to people and praying and all that kind of stuff. So the idea is that these folks didn't have the Bible to be able to read the stories, to learn and to find Jesus, because that's where it leads you, is straight to Jesus. As you read the Old Testament, it just gets you right to Jesus. There's a reason why Jesus came, and it's the Old Testament, right? All of the stuff that they went through, they were in need of a Savior, and no way to reconcile ourselves to God because of our sin. And he came as that one-time sacrifice, right? So for us, we sit there, we go, okay, so is God immanent or is he transcendent? Because Gideon is saying, God's abandoned us. I hadn't seen him, right? Who's abandoned who? Because what Sam said is exactly it, is that God doesn't abandon us, we abandon him. And so the reason that I have all those missionary books, which are lined up in my office, of all these people, and you guys go, man, Pastor Chris talks about missionaries so much, because when you go to be a missionary in Bangkok, Thailand, or in Tunisia, or in Russia, or in Australia, or wherever you are desperate for, you don't know anybody, you don't know the language, you don't have all the finances you need, there's danger, there's risk, and so, James and I, we do some praying here. When they go, they do some praying all the time because they have to. My life is at risk. My kids are over here with me. Just like the guy in South Africa that got abducted recently, right? 6 kids with him. He had his wife and 6 kids. And he was up preaching like me, and they came in with guns and took him. Captured him and took him, and we're trying to, I guess, ransom him, trying to get some money associated with that. But, for us, we sit there and we look at that kind of stuff, and the reason that we're praying, the reason we're so committed to that relationship with God is because of the risk and all of what we're trying to accomplish. And then God is ever more present. We can see Him more and more. Because if I have you start looking for Him every day, you start seeing Him more. You know what I'm saying? It's when we go do our own thing and we're distracted is when we go, well, I hadn't seen God do nothing, right? Well, there's a reason for that. And it's easy to see. It's whether it is, some of us get so consumed. My roommate in Florida, Mike, he ended up being the president of a robotics company, had 200 employees, multimillionaire. It's a guy I went to high school with. We lived together in a condo that was right on the beach. The first 2 years I graduated college. And Mike would get up. He'd be gone before I got up in the morning. I had to be at work at 8. He would be gone. I wouldn't even see him in the morning. And then at night, he came home after I did, and then he goes, hey, let's go. We're going to go over here. And I go, where are we going? And I mean, like, cover of darkness. He's crawling around in the dumpsters of his competitors trying to steal their sales information out of their dumpsters. He's that committed to work. Criminal activity. I mean, that's the way that would be. It's borderline criminal activity because it's in the trash. But you get the point. Is the idea is that some people get so consumed with work, I don't see anything, even my kids, I don't see my wife, I don't see my husband, whatever it might be, because the work is such a priority for me. The same is true with, working out or collecting and doing a hobby or your children. I mean, think about, I talked on Sunday about Jill being Superwoman and being on the Mount Rushmore for women, that kind of thing. Is that there were times with 4 kids that we were all going like this. Go over here, get over here, you got to be here, don't forget to be here, you got to get this, you got to pick this up over here, take them over here, get this, pick them up over here, got to take them over there. School's doing this, the band's doing this, the sports, every single one of you are doing this because you've all done it, right? You know what I'm talking about. And so for us, we get consumed in those things and we don't see God because we are so consumed. Another thing that keeps us from seeing God, I think, is sometimes we get focused and preoccupied with certain things. Okay? My friend Linda, who's deceased now, but this was Linda. She would turn the TV on and you couldn't talk to her. She was so, she was watching and she was like, a car wreck in Morocco today. Hot air balloon went down in France. And she's just, it's just like, and that's all she did was just watch on TV all the bad stuff that happened throughout the day. And it was just like, and at the end of the day when you would talk to her, she would be like, and her blood pressure was off the scale because that was what was consuming her. So, just that idea. But, the same is true about, when I was, 19 years old. What did you think about when you were 19 years old? I was chasing women fast as I could chase women. You know what I'm saying? When you're certain ages, you're chasing different things in your life, and so you're preoccupied with those things. It's not until you get focused on God that you start seeing all of these wonderful things. So the idea is, if I can meld the two together, if Jesus starts talking about, I am the vine, you are the branches, right? And that we're supposed to be connected and plugged in, and the idea is like these trees, right? So when the storm comes, what does a tree do? What's a tree do? Right? Back and forth, but does it fall usually? No. Why doesn't it fall? It's got roots, right? Okay. So how come when I go and I look at a mountain, then there's these cracks and crevices on a mountain, that there's stuff growing in those cracks and crevices, right? Why is that? Well, because that little bit of all the molecular stuff is making stuff, and then a little bit of water, seeds get in there, and then they start growing all kinds of different moss and those little things, which gives us a little bit of dirt when it dies off, which gives us the seed, a little bit of, and it'll grow up. But how much does it survive? It doesn't survive much because it's only got this much soil, right? The idea is that like a tree, that it's got these roots that go down, and what do the roots do? It keeps it stable in the storm, but what do the roots do? They get water, nutrients, all of those things, right? I mean, those are all things, and that's kind of how we are in terms of being plugged in with God. You got leaves on a tree, you got branches that got leaves, and the leaves are in the sunlight, and they're doing photosynthesis, and they're making all this, right? You got all this process going on, but you have to be plugged into the tree for that to be happening. It's just like, this is a great fan, but if I'm not plugged in, right there's that yellow cord going in, and where does it go? To the electricity that runs to here, right? And so it makes that fan turn, but if it's not plugged in, I'm not able to function as it's supposed to. So we have to be plugged in. So plugged in does what for us in terms of immanence and transcendence? If I'm plugged into God and every morning I get up and I pray and I read my Bible, doing my quiet time, I'm plugged in, so I'm functioning as God built me, right? But if I'm not doing those things, if I'm not seeking Him in that way, then I'm not, and then I struggle to be able to see God, and I think, He's just out there somewhere. He doesn't care about me. As we grow in our walk and in our faith with God, we grow, and watch what happens. Because I just said at 19 I was chasing women, and the idea was, that we go from when we were kids, because you got little babies back there. Now, Kinsey, when Lottie is sleepy, what does she do? If you just hold her like this and she's sleepy, she cries. She wants to go to sleep, right? She wants you to do what she wants to do, which is lay her down and snuggle her and let her go to sleep. When she's hungry, what does she do? She cries. If her diaper is full, what does she do? You're getting a point here that when we start out life, we're very selfish people. And so when you go to the grocery store and you walk down the cereal aisle, there's little kids laying in the floor going, they're just pitching a fit because you didn't buy, chocolate-covered sugar bombs for them or whatever to have. We go from selfish when we're walking with Christ to what? To unselfish, right? That is the transition that goes on, is from being selfish people to unselfish people. And so if we're living a selfish life and we never make that transition, then what we're doing is that we're living every day with that lamp that we carry around. Because we just want God to do, when we need Him to do something, we want Him to do it. And when do we want Him to do it? Now. I need her to do it now. Come on, God, I need it now. And so if we make that transition, right, then we become unselfish. Then we're not demanding that God do anything. We're asking Him, and we're watching Him, and we're thanking Him. And this is one of those things that we miss out on, is that when we're selfish, we sit around and we worry, and we're just like, oh my gosh, is this going to, I'm so afraid, and we're this. And as we trust Him more, the fear goes away because we are seeing Him do all these wonderful things, and we are thanking Him. We have grateful hearts. And so, when my friend Dot is sitting there, and I mean, guys, I was just going, I didn't even know what to say. This 78-year-old woman, I mean, when we moved to Knoxville in the 90s, she's 78, 70 years old, and she's telling this story, and these tears are just coming down her face. And she goes, I can remember my dad, and he had saved up all this time, and he bought each one of us kids a piece of fruit for Christmas. And I was just sitting there, and I mean, I came up in the 70s and 80s, you know what I mean? I told you, I made my Christmas list out of the JCPenney's and the Sears and the service merchandise catalogs. I had the page numbers and all that stuff about everything that I wanted. I was an only child, James, so, I was spoiled rotten. And she's going, I got an orange, and I'd never even seen an orange. I had heard about an orange. And I'm like, why are you crying about an orange, right? Because I hadn't made that transition from where I understood how to be thankful, how to be grateful for the things. Because the thing that stands out in the Bible and in our lives and in people who come to me for counseling all the time, God bless you. Now that I've forgotten what I was going to say, the thing that stands out is that we are sometimes people who are always dissatisfied. Why? Because we don't have the grateful, thankful. Why are we dissatisfied all the time? Because we don't have more. There's something we don't have that we want. Our house isn't big enough. Oh, just think about all the different things. How big is the list of things that you would want? I mean, seriously, if we just wrote it down, if we said, what do I really want? You're writing it down. I mean, it'd be a pretty long list. It'd be a bunch of stuff. You know what I'm saying? I've always wanted an ATV. Oh, yeah, but I've always wanted a side-by-side, too. Oh, and James, what I've always really wanted is a boat. No, but what I really want, right? I mean, we could just keep going. It is never ending. Well, I mean, I have some friends that, went down to New Orleans and bought a boat and sailed it back up the Mississippi and the Tennessee River to get it back up here. And, and then they bought a bigger boat and they had to go somewhere else and get that bigger boat and bring it here. And I mean, it's just, there's always a bigger, boat, better car, better house. There's always, right? I mean, there's always more stuff. And if we live our lives that way, then we just find ourselves dissatisfied and wondering why God won't do what I want him to do when I want him to do it. Versus, Lord, thank you for the orange. Goodness gracious. This is unbelievable that you would bless me in this way, or that you would answer that prayer. And I think, when I look around the table on the prayer breakfast folks on Tuesdays, and trust me, we're all just normal folks. All we're doing is praying. There's nothing special. We're not sitting there. Patsy doesn't get up and go, okay, I remember the dance. This is our answer prayer dance, that we do. There's no dancing. Nobody's throwing up chalk into the sky, like LeBron, to make our dreams come true or whatever. Nobody's saying incantations. We don't have any wands. It's just people sitting around a table. We're basically spitting biscuits at each other because we're praying while we're eating biscuits. But they're just praying. But the next week, people come in and they go, oh, and I saw God did this, and God answered this prayer, and God did this, and God did this, and God did this. And I'm sitting there going, I mean, it's amazing to me to watch that happen. But if I wasn't praying for it, would I be seeing it? Maybe not. Might not be, because if I'm just praying for the lottery numbers, and on Tuesday I didn't win, and on Wednesday I didn't win, and on Saturday I didn't win, then I'm getting disgusted, and I'm upset, and I'm going, why has God abandoned us and not given us the lottery numbers? Because I've been good. I've not been sinning. I've been, right? We say those things. So the idea of whether God is nearby or far away has more to do. If you say to somebody, if you look around you and you go, oh, that person I know has lots of friends. Why is that? Why do they have lots of friends? Because takes a friend to be a friend. Thank you so much, T-shirt, Jeannie. It is, you know what I mean? Is you when you go and you are friendly to people and you do nice things for them, they reciprocate. People like to be around you. If you listen to people, they tend to gravitate to you if you're nice. Like Marcy just said that a minute ago. That's how, and they gravitate to you. And the more that you talk to God, the more that you spend time with Him, the closer it seems that He is. And so let me say this just to finish up here. When we grow our relationship with God, it doesn't mean that we get to the point to where God gives us the lottery numbers. You understand what that means? It's not that I'm being so selfish and God's not going to give them to me because I'm selfish. But once I'm unselfish, then God will finally do what I ask Him to do. That's not it at all. We're missing it at that point. But I will tell you this. The two people that I know in my lifetime, absolutely, who've given away more money than anybody that I know. I mean, seriously, they're not like, if I was Bill Gates, I always say if I was Bill Gates or somebody like that and I had billions of dollars, Elon Musk or some of these people, I'd be going, hey, here, take this, take some of this, take some of this, here, take some of this. You always say that you'd be like that. I'd be such a philanthropist. I'd be giving it away, right? But the people that I know who've given more money away in the time that I've lived, that I've watched people, and it's $20 here, paid their electric bill here, helped them with a car payment here, let somebody live with them, helped them get an apartment, paid the deposits, whatever it is, doing that kind of stuff throughout their entire lives. That's my friends Randy and Leah that I used to go to church with. And so Leah calls me and she goes, hey, did you hear the good news? And I was like, what? She goes, I won a truck. And I said, how did you win a truck? And she goes, okay, so they came around selling tickets for the Boys and Girls Club, and it was a ticket, and they were only selling 500 tickets and they were $250 a piece, and it all goes to the Boys and Girls Club. Doesn't pay for any of it just goes to Boys and Girls Club. And she said, so it bought me a golf ball for $250. And I said, you hit a golf ball in a hole and got one? She goes, no. Didn't hit a golf ball. She goes, they put them into a bucket and they took them up in a helicopter. And I went, where is this story going? What on earth are you paid $250 for them to put it in a bucket, take it in a helicopter? She goes, they flew over a golf course, came around, went right over this hole, had it done there, and then they released the bucket, dumped all the balls out, and then whichever one was closest to the hole won the truck, $57,000 truck. And she said, they fell out, and mine rolled over and went in the hole. And I was like, this is not a real story. How on earth did this happen? You know? And then after she's telling me this, and I went and I saw this truck. I mean, it's a beautiful truck and everything. And I went, that figures. And she goes, what do you mean that figures? And I go, y'all have given away more money than anybody I've ever known in my life. And so when people hear that, they go, if I serve God and I'm at church every Sunday, then God will finally give me those numbers and I can win the lottery. No, I don't know why God does those things for some folks and others He does not. I don't understand. And I think a lot of times that was such a blessing to them, and they told 10 million people about it, how God did that. And so, it draws people to Christ in knowing that. But for us, we have to be okay with the things about the orange. Right? When I wake up in the morning, what's the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning? You personally? I know Jim and I are of the age where we go to the bathroom. But most people pick up that phone immediately, right? They get their phone, check their messages, look at the whatever. I mean, lots of people grab that phone immediately. You know what I mean? Is that, where's the focus in the morning when you get up? You know what I'm saying? And for me, I've started, when I'm just laying there and I wake up and Jill will tell you, I'm like Doberman Pinscher waking up in the morning, okay? I'm like Pitbull. It's awful. I mean, when I wake up, I'm not the nicest person. It takes me an hour to wake up. And so, but laying on the pillow, I will say, Lord, thank you that I just woke up, because a lot of people didn't this morning, right? And thank you that I'm going to put 2 feet on the floor, and I'm going to walk to the bathroom myself. I don't have to have an orderly helping me. I don't have to have a walker. I don't have to have a wheelchair right now. That thank you, and I start thanking Him for just these things that are blessings, and that, because when you go to Haiti or something like that on a mission trip, and you wake up, okay, so I told Jimmy this story, is that they didn't tell me anything when I went to Haiti the first time. They didn't give me any disclaimers to say, be careful of this, be careful of this. So we were staying in an open air church. We had mosquito nets over our cots. It's just a room, look almost identical to this, but it had half wall kind of things that were up and that kind of stuff. And so as it happens, I had to go to the restroom during the middle of the night, James. And so they're like, it's an outhouse. You have to go outside the church. There's an outhouse out there. Just take your flashlight, go out there. So it's middle of the night, pitch dark in Haiti. And I'm like, oh, golly. And I go out there, do my business. And as I'm walking back, I'm looking at the outside of this church building that's open air that has these little walls. And there's like these black splotches everywhere. They're just everywhere. Look, and I was like, what is that? Why'd they paint that way or whatever? And I go over to it, and I shine my light on it, and they're tarantulas. They're big black spiders that are all over the walls of this place. And I'm sleeping inside, in a cot in a mosquito net. And I'm sitting there going, dear Lord, please keep the spiders off of me tonight while I'm sleeping, right? And then so there are times when I'm laying in my comfy bed in the air conditioning at home, and I go, Lord, thank you, there's no spiders on the outside of my house or whatever. So it is that idea of being thankful and grateful people. I see God more. I see Him imminent, here with me, Emmanuel, God with us, as opposed to when I'm selfish, God's abandoned us. I don't know where He is. He's not been around much, right? That's where we sit tonight. Which one are we going to be? God bless you. Thanks for joining us tonight for Bible study.